Good morning. Thank you all for coming. We might have a few more people drifting in, and we are enough if it's just us. I was kind of wishing we had a slightly different setup so we could be more open, so that we can have more conversation, because a lot of what we're going to do today is pretty interactive. It's not just going to be the two of us talking. But what we will be talking about, and the conversation we're going to be inviting you into, is really a continuation of the amazing sermon we had this morning about the concept of abundance in the face of a prevalent cultural character or sense of scarcity in the world. So we are delighted. This is work that's been so important to both Sarah and myself for many, many years. We'll be basing some of our conversation and our questions and our investigation on the amazing work of Lynn Twist, who has been a fundraiser, first as a volunteer fundraiser and later as a paid fundraiser. But her work has been transformational in my life personally, and I think in Sarah's as well. I say I've been working with this for 30 years as a way to say, we're never done with this conversation. We're never done with our fear of scarcity, with our sense of not being enough, with our resignation to that this is the way that it is. And it's there to support us in our conversations and our lives going forward. So we're going to start right in by just expanding or extending our morning together with a moment of silence. So if you would just take a deep breath after your yummy coffee or cookies and conversations, and let's just gather for what we hope will be a wonderful interchange with you, an inquiry with you about the spirituality or the soul of money. Ding. Ding. Lynn Twist writes, the lie of scarcity is the mindset of not enough. It is born of fear, and it feeds fear. But when we let go of that lie, we discover sufficiency. Not a quantity of anything, but an experience of our own wholeness. So in this hour at best together, let us just enter into this conversation together with open-heartedness, with joy. I want to borrow from our astronauts. There's just a lot of joy available for us all the time. And with gratitude for each and every one of us, because we carry each other, we support each other as we have these conversations without shame, without judgment, and with the opportunity of the amazing blessing that abundance is always already present in our lives. Amen.
So we're going to start by sort of leaning into this, what Lynn Twist calls the lie of scarcity. And just to ground us in scarcity thinking, let's all sit quietly. We're going to do a lot of quiet thinking, just heads up, for a few, 30 seconds or so, and notice any word or image that arises when you hear the word money. Let's just sit with that. Curious what comes up. Anybody willing to share a word or two? It's just a word.
Envy is something that comes up where
Envy.
you see what somebody else has. It's like, oh, if I can get what they had, I could do what they did. You know? Envy, and feeling that if I see what someone else has, and if I had money, I could do what they're doing. So that's envy.
Opportunity.
Necessary.
I was also going to say opportunity.
It's optional. You don't have to share a word, but
Freedom.
freedom.
I don't know what this is about. Giving flight.
Giving flight.
Healthcare costs.
Healthcare costs.
Not enough.
Mm-hmm.
Enough.
Private. Private, yeah.
Corrupting.
I liked enough.
I'm a little speechless, thinking about it.
I keep singing the song in cabaret. Money, 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 money.
Makes the world go round. But, I think it's just interesting, Lindquist says, no matter who we are or what our circumstances, we swim in conversations about what there is not enough of. And she identifies 3 toxic myths at the core of scarcity thinking, of this and let's be clear, we feel this scarcity in our time. We feel it in our money. We feel it in maybe our friendships. We feel it in our work. We feel scarcity all over the place. That's kind of like the background conversation of our lives. There's a passage where she says, before my feet hit the floor in the morning, I'm thinking about, I don't have enough time to do this, I don't have, and we orient ourselves in relationship to every breath from there's not enough. And she identifies 3 toxic myths at the core of that thinking. 1, there is not enough. It's kind of like musical chairs, right? We're playing life as musical chairs. We're just trying to be the one that doesn't get left without a seat at the end of the song. More is better, which drives us to compete for resources, to acquire, to accumulate, because, if I have some, well, more is better, so I better get me some more. And 3, that's just the way it is. So this insufficiency that some will be left out, so you better get all you can, is somehow baked into all the rules of the universe. And these aren't just economic ideas. They become really spiritual postures. They shape how we see ourselves, our neighbors, and our God, or whatever name you use. Scarcity is not about having little. It's a mindset that even she found in all of her research fundraising around the world affects the very wealthy as well. So let's just do a little discussion question. If you want to write stuff down, just grab those little things in the pew boxes. We were supposed to bring paper, but somebody forgot. But here's your discussion question. Twist says scarcity is a lie, not just a feeling, but something false. Does that ring true to you? And where do you see scarcity thinking showing up in your own life, beyond just finances? How does scarcity thinking affect your ability to enjoy life to the fullest? So just think about that, and then we'll I think the idea is to kind of have open sharing. I don't know, passing the mic is kind of awkward, but if we all speak loudly, we can do that, or we can just pass the mic and be good with it. But yeah, so just, where is scarcity showing up for you? Where's scarcity showing up for you, Ro?
Sleep is one I keep thinking about.
Yeah.
Sleep. And it's never enough. I never get quite enough sleep.
this kind of pertains. My sister-in-law has in her bathroom this box of soap. It says on it, "Be happy, ... always." And it just makes me mad. Because it's like, well, I can't be always happy. And so then I'm thinking, I don't have enough happiness. I mean, I don't feel that way, but that's what that stupid saying makes me feel. So happiness is a thing that there seems to be a scarcity of.
As though there's a specific amount that
That
would
can
be
be
the
measured.
right amount, and then you would be actually happy, as opposed to your amount is just right now, the way it is.
And it may not always be.
And why be happy all the time? I once asked one friend of mine if he was happy, just like, but are you happy? And he said, Rosemary, the best it ever gets is less anxious. I was like, huh, he knows that about himself, and he's good. Where
My
is
version is
scarcity?
definitely time scarcity.
Time.
There's not enough time scarcity. Feeling like there's not enough time to do all the things I should do. And there's a big
how's
should
that-
in it.
And how does that affect your day and how you feel living in your life to not have enough time
Yeah,
or
it's
sense?
just pressured. Yeah.
I would say something similar is I'm focusing on time here. And the way it affects my day is that it can turn living life into a series of tasks to be checked off the list. And so rather than living and enjoying and being, kind of present in what I'm doing, it's, okay, good, got that done. Now let's move on to the next thing that's on my list today.
Yeah, that sort of pause for, well, just the moments go by in checklists. We live together, same checklist.
Well, I can really relate to the checklist. But I think the other thing that keeps me, it's not so much the now as the what's next, the future, and thinking about the money that would be needed to deal with the unknown that is, weighs it down.
I have a quick one. This isn't so much about money, but it relates to time and parenting. As you can get into a scarcity sense of like, oh, they'll only either both time expands, these are the longest, shortest time, the sense of like this will never end, or they're already growing up so fast and soon this will all be over. And I recently read something somewhere that was, we think because children grow up that their job is to grow up, but their job is to be children. And that's true for all of us. Our job is to live our lives, not to grow up into what's next.
I want to share a short anecdote. In 1980, I was part of a men's group, and we made a commitment to be open, and we talked about relationships and sex and jobs and kids and parents. We talked about everything but money. Money was the last one to come up, and when it finally came up, a remarkable result happened. The person whose loft we met in, the loft had been an Architectural Digest, it was a gem. He was making $4,000 a year. Jack, 8. Peter, 16. Me, maybe I was 32. Someone was 64 and somebody was 128. And really, it really was powers of 2. And which life would you choose? It was, there was no answer there. That $4,000 life was pretty sweet.
Thank you.
You don't have to,
You're up. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Both of us spoken aloud and what's in the silence of your hearts.
So what we wanted to really, we want to just acknowledge there is this general pervasive sense that we all live with, that there's some sort of scarcity in our lives, relational, health, money, time, sleep, And what Lynn Twist helps us to transform is introducing this concept of sufficiency, that there actually already is enough, but that it's a spiritual practice to get to that place of understanding it, accepting it, and living out of that sense of enough, or even eventually the sense of abundance in your life. Now, I want to just say, I know that's hard because, everyone wants to pay their bills and everyone has to get some food and some shelter, and there are so many needs, and it goes on and on. There's never enough. But what we want to invite into this conversation is that there actually is. I'm sorry, I just have to share this one thought. I was on a 2-hour conversation with a Zen teacher yesterday, and we were talking about, it was a workshop, and it was the same thing. We were talking about, sorry, my brain just shortened out what the actual word is, but it has to do with, it's like abundance, but it's this idea that it is already always there, like the sun, but a lot of our lives are filled with clouds that obscure it. And it is the ability to be able to see through those clouds, or to wait for those clouds to pass away, that we actually see the sun shining again, that it is already present. And it's an attitude of waiting, of attending, of generating this sense of faith that the sun is actually there, that it is actually going to rise again tomorrow, that the tide is going to come in. Maybe not the way we think of it now, with so much of chasing after more, but this way of being with that it is the way that it is. And I can see that clearly, and I don't have to worry about tomorrow. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm actually talking my way out of my own belief in this system, because I get it that things can be so hard. And I believe, and I trust, and I have faith in this idea that we are not directly connected with how much money we have. Like the guy with the beautiful loft. It wasn't about his money, it was about the life he chose to live inside of that. So what is it that we generate? And this is a quote from Lynn, that sufficiency is an act of generating, distinguishing, making known to yourself what you have, so being real about that. What do you have? What do you need? And what is enough? It's an internal, soulful territory, a different relationship with the same money. I mean, this gets into a very long conversation, and I think we're going to talk about this idea of money as being neutral and how it flows in our lives. But right now, for this moment, even though it seems like she's just not making a lot of sense here, because I really don't have enough to do something today. But if we could just think about what Twist says, that sufficiency is not about having, it's also not asking you to be okay with less or to want less, but to be present to what you do have, to what is present in your life. It's like with a person who has pain, you can be consumed by the pain, and then the invitation is to notice, well, what else is there? Can I look up enough from the pain, from the sense of scarcity? Can I look up what else is there? The rabbit spotted in the gravel, the snow melting into pools, the flowers blooming. What is it that makes my life rich? So, how might the shift of attention away from not enough to what is and what else is there shift something else in your life, whether it is about time or sleep or love? Can you imagine something in you, in your heart, shifting the way Ben's group kind of shifted in looking at what is a life? What matters? And kind of also, can I pile this second question on there, do you think? Is this too much? But if you genuinely believed that you had enough in this moment, maybe not in the far future that we can't know anyway, but if we believed we had enough, how would that change how we act or how we as a community act and talk about money? Does this feel too abstract, or is something hitting for you a little bit? If you believed you had enough, how would that change you, the way you are in the world? Andy?
Maybe you're saying this, but I think you need to emphasize the other side. What gives you pleasure? I don't think scarcity is the issue with at least a lot of our own congregation, our own community. Instead, what makes you happy? And in the world of giving, it's the people who I think give the most are the ones that get the greatest satisfaction out of it.
Thank you. Yes, you're going to lead us right into the next level of this conversation as we kind of come to terms with our own lives and scarcity and sense of sufficiency.
Yeah, I feel I can respond to that because I have been feeling like I've had enough myself lately, but what to do with, what I do have, right? And there's so many ways to contribute funds, to so many good choices that it ends up being a struggle in some ways to judge, right? And say, what do I want to help with?
What a great question. And, what do you want? What do you have? What do you need? What do you wish? What do you dream? What do you want to be connected to? What's the opportunity? What's the joy? Great question. Sit with that. What do I want?
So as we have this conversation, I keep coming to this thought that we are so lucky to be able to even have this conversation. And I keep thinking about places, war-torn countries and places where there's starving and floods and death. And I'm thinking, I shouldn't be focusing on me. That's so selfish. Why am I even thinking about me? I should be thinking about how I'm going to help somebody else. But it's a balance, because we have to take care of ourselves to help others. But I'm hung up in this balance of, wow, we're experiencing this luxury of having this conversation. So.
And I can't wait for Sarah to take us into this next phase. But Lynn Twist, I will just, as a little bit of background, I want to encourage you all to just take a look at this book. It's in our church library. You can get it online. It's in the.
And I do have some quotations excerpted that I can,
Yeah.
I'll send you away with.
But a lot of her life was spent in Africa, in communities where there is nothing, including water. And what she encountered in these communities was aliveness, joy, community, celebration, being welcomed into their communities with dancing and singing. So, I just want to offer that this piece about yes, it's a struggle, especially when we come from so much to think about. But
well, and I think the other thing she would say is this conversation about what do I do with what I have? What am I meant to do? How can I be of service? Is a conversation that happens if we're paying attention, no matter what our resources are. She has these great anecdotes about being in the basement in Harlem and a woman, giving her $50 and how much she learned from the generosity of somebody who had so little, in contrast to somebody who had so much who was just being perfunctory in the giving. And I think that gets into a sort of I can go to our next piece, which is that money is itself neutral. We think it's powerful. We think it measures success. We give it all sorts of things, but actually all it is a means of having flow. And the way we relate to it is very much a moral and spiritual question. How we earn it, and where we send it, what we refuse to fund, what we invest in, they're all an opportunity to express our deepest values. And so thinking about your financial resources and those decisions as a vote, right? And I also want to say that, you know, conversations about money and where we have freedom and where we feel constrained and which of us feel like we have surplus money and which of us don't, you know, is a thorny thing. Like, I just want to keep us in an open-hearted space as we do that. So let's do discussion questions, right?
Yeah.
Or you want to do something else? I'm just mindful of our time.
How are we doing on our time?
Well, we started 20 minutes late, so
We have 15 minutes or so? Yeah. You know, yes, we can just go to this next thing. I feel like the anecdote about the woman in the church basement in Harlem and how she gave that money out of her, what she said, along with Lynn was raising money for the Hunger Project to help feed people in Africa. And she'd been to visit a very wealthy businessman. And she made this whole presentation to him. And when she finished, he opened his drawer and he took out a check that he'd already written for $10,000.
50.
50,000? A lot of money.
1973 or something.
But he had already written that check. It had nothing to do with what she said or what she was trying to invite him into, telling him about the women in Africa for whom she was trying to raise money to get equipment so that they themselves could dig a well. And then she went to this church basement in Harlem, pouring rain. She's like, I got this $50,000 check in my briefcase, and now I'm going to talk to these people in this church basement. And when she was done telling them about this project and the women in Africa who were walking 10 miles each way a day to get water and what they were trying to do to be self-sufficient, they just needed some equipment. This woman came forward, and she had just finished a day of work as a house cleaner.
I've just earned this money washing some white woman's clothes.
And she gave that money. And every time I think of this story, I'm like, and then
sometimes money throws to my life like a trickle,
yeah.
sometimes like a river.
Right. And she said, I want to give this money because I want to be part of this project. And I had a similar experience at an event raising money for the same project. And I remember thinking, I want to be connected to these women. I go to my house every day, okay? I'm worried about these. And I turn on my water and the water comes out. My money at the time, my $25 a month that I didn't believe I even had, my $25 a month might do a little bit for this project. But you know what it was doing for me? I was connected to those women in Africa for 3 years. Every time I turned on my faucet, I was part of them, and they made my life better. They filled my life with sufficiency when I thought I didn't have enough. And this is the opportunity part. This is the what I want part. What do you want to be connected to? Where do you want money to flow like water in your lives? Who do you want to be? Where do you acknowledge your interconnectedness in the world? Your money is that energy. Your money is your soul. When, like this woman, she makes that declaration, I want to be part of this. My soul is in this money. And Lynn Twist left that meeting herself transformed.
She returned the $50,000 check to the corporate exec. She felt it was dirty money. It wasn't given with the energy of love. It was, they had gotten into some corporate PR problems, and it was sort of a, payoff to make themselves look good. She's like, no, I don't want to hold that energy.
And she often met with people who were very wealthy, but whose lives felt, she worked with this whole group of women at Microsoft. High-level executives, making tons of money, never home with their kids, never home for a meal.
Did she name the guys' names so we can
Go after. I know, I was like, stewardship, opening doors, 1973, I don't know where he is now. He's retired. He retired, and she did encounter him later. He reached out to her to say, that stuck with me my whole career of successful things, and she ended up making a big contribution to her work. Because I think, it's a yearning we all have that we don't necessarily take time to acknowledge. That these gifts we have aren't actually ours, like our zigzag shirt, right? And we all yearn to connect to a higher purpose. And I guess, do we want to do this question, or do you want to? Yeah, go. You got it.
I think one of those questions, would be great.
Yeah, I was thinking about. I was going to do the second one.
Okay.
So she writes about this idea of soul-aligned giving. Twist does. Generosity that flows not from obligation or guilt, but a sense of abundance and purpose, fullness, to use Nate's term from this morning. And I'm curious, it sounds so wonderful as we sit here, but what conditions in your life make that kind of giving possible? What, if anything, gets in the way?
Let's just sit with that for a minute. Just again, it's not about amount.
No.
It's about your heart. It's about what would, it's almost like using money terms, what would be your return on investment
Right.
in terms of feeding your soul, feeding your life, feeding your sense of connection?
And I think that's just, to sort of circle up, one of the things that has always been so moving to me about Lynn's work is the gift that comes to the giver of being in the flow, of making that connection, the enrichment. Anyway. What conditions make that kind of open-hearted giving possible? What gets in the way? Anyone have a share?
Wow, what a question. I think in my case, the conditions in my life that have made my contributions to this community a soul-giving thing is that, number one, I'm single. I live alone, have very little community outside of this church, and I came to this church in such a way from a distance, and so coming here and finding this community has been like having my second home, really. And I freely admit that I do not live in abundance. I live in that place of scarcity all the time, and know in my soul that I have enough, but the fear there always of what if and when and who's it going to affect and what's it going to be like, all of that stuff comes up for me. But I hear what you're saying, the two of you and people here, that living with enough is really makes your soul thrive. And right now, I have enough, and I live with enough, but the future scares me.
you so much, Paula.
I mean, Rosemary said at the opening, 30 years, right? It's this idea of sufficiency is lifelong work in the way that meditation is lifelong work, right? And you taste it, and it fleets. So,
And not to fix anything. I mean, I'm not here to fix anything about this because it's a very real sensation, a very real feeling in the world. But I was reading Maria Shriver's Sunday paper this morning, and she said, you know, I look at my life, we're the same age, and she said, and I think about all the times I worried about all the things that were going to happen. And she said, you know, here I am, and most of those things never happened. But I sure spent a lot of my energy worrying about them. It's not to say one shouldn't plan, be reasonable, you know, all those things. But the worry part, how can we see it, hold it, and also give it up. Give it up. I mean, we get to sit in this space, I get to say those kinds of things, you know. Give it up. Like, not like stop, but give it up.
I was thinking about how much of the fear, appreciating so much of this conversation and vulnerability that people are leading with. I was thinking about how so much of the fear comes from like a worst case scenario kind of thinking, and Sarah and I were kind of quietly saying, if we could have a system that, you know, that doesn't rely on us all shoring up against the worst case scenario, you know. So there's like structural and societal realities that inform all our deepest anxieties that are, you know, in a large part social, psychological, spiritual, and there's reality to them too. And, you know, someone mentioned medical expenses early on, and I was feeling moved to share in my own young adulthood, my best friend from seminary, I don't think I've shared this story here, Michelle, raised Catholic, struggled with her own call to ministry at Yale Divinity School, ultimately decided to stick it out in the Catholic Church, anyway, but fell in love with her husband, who was doing an MD, PhD, brilliant guy. I preached at their wedding, which all the Catholic attendees said, did you write that? And noticed Bob, her husband, noticed that there was something off about his gait at the wedding, and he was diagnosed with ALS weeks later. They went on to have a child who they named Hope. He died during COVID. And I've never helped out a friend like in a significant financial way until I helped them out as he was dying. Worst case scenario, right? And we are connected now in a different way. It changed our relationship. She lives in Chicago. I don't see her very often. Her daughter is exactly 2 years older than Zoe. They have the same birthday twins. So I always know she's turning 10 this spring. Worst case scenario. And being open to the movement of the Spirit through, you know, the reality of that has changed my life too.
Thank you so much, Kit.
I think there are two different parts to this that I'm not sure we've clarified. One part may be how much, but the other is focus. Just to confess and to exemplify it, on the Easter offering, I went home intending to send in an additional contribution. And I wrote it down on my to-do list, and I never got around to it. It just didn't come high enough in my mind. Looking in the larger world, said to the two of you that the most important strategy in fundraising is that very sophisticated issue of asking for the money. And the reason that makes such a difference is because it motivates, I was tempted to use the word forces, we'll use both those words, the individual to give this a high priority, whether it's to give $10 or $1 million. You want to make sure the person gets around to it.
Yeah, like where is our attention? What is our attention on? You know, we.
It's another area of scarcity.
It's another area of scarcity. You know, we didn't struggle. Sarah and I have been wanting to do a very full workshop, like a half day sort of thing, on the soul of money for years, and it couldn't come to our attention, you know, our focus enough, or for many years. And now doing it right now, we feel like, oh, it seems a little self-serving, doesn't it? Like, because we are trying to raise money for the church and for opening doors. But what we've been hearing so much in our conversations with folks is the uncertainty about the future, about a sense of scarcity, about a sense of judgment. Like, will we, you know, we're going to know. Are we going to judge you? And we wanted to assure people that no, we're not, because we actually stand in this place of what we want is your participation. We want you to be as generous as you possibly can, of course. But this was going to be about just introducing this idea of you are enough. We're actually already enough together. Yes, we have visions. Yes, we have dreams. We believe we're holding a space that will create all these other things happening in the world. But we wanted to do this because it's not about, we're not going to be asking you today for that, but we want to be able to ask, but so that you'll hear it in a place of love and abundance and sufficiency and enoughness and generativity, and your lives being our lives together, being just more amazing when we give our money with attention and with love and with soul.
Yeah, I'm just going to give a little quotation from Lynn. Money is like water. Think about that. Not power, not the water. It can be a conduit for commitment, a currency of love. Money moving in the direction of our highest commitments nourishes our world and ourselves. True for $1, true for $1 million. So do you want to do this last bit? We're sort of timing, right?
We're kind of at our time.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll leave it as a to-go question. Time? Is that time? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It's
And
time.
actually, we have some discussion. I'm going to hand this out.
Mhm.
And let's just, what I'd like to do before I start handing things out, I'm going to hand it out at the end. But let's just do our final blessing.
Sure.
Want to do that? You want to lead it?
Oh,
Or want me to? Either way.
you get a chance. I got to pray before. Got to share the opportunity.
I have a cheat sheet. So let's just, I want to, before we do that, just say thank you for sitting here in this beautiful space, sort of contemplating how we open our hearts to all of the flows in our life. The flows of money, the flows of time, the flows of energy, the flows of health, pain, all of it. And pray with me. May we release the lie that there is not enough. May we trust the gift of what we have. May our hands open to receive and to give. And may we go from this place knowing we are enough. We have enough. We can do enough.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you all.
Thank you all for coming. Please know that we and your ministers are available for you. If there are questions that you have, if this triggers something for you, if you want to talk more about money privately, we're available.
If you're interested in working with us to do this half-day dig into this topic at a future time.
Thank you. More questions than you came in with?